And welcome back, everyone. This is episode 2 of As the Badge Turns. I'm Scott Nokon, joined by Sheriff Rich Stanek. Uh, we will co-host this affair as long as you'll have us. And with this being episode number 2, we thought we really just kind of up our game and bring in Steve Casey. Steve Casey is a just recently retired, though. Steve, we're so formal here. As we've known each other for a number of years. As you've talked about, and let you go into more detail. You've kind of detailed your life out in certain chapters. So, it wasn't that you were done and going to go off and sit on a boat, though more power to you, but it was really what you were going to do next, your next chapter. So I liked how you kind of preface that. But Steve Casey, for those of you who don't know, and really, come on, if you're listening to this show, watching this show, you certainly have to know Steve. He's a fixture in the Florida Sheriff's Association for many, many years. I'll let him talk about maybe brag a little, though. People generally don't brag about themselves, but there's plenty of really great highlights to kind of focus on. Again, we want to hear from, what started you out into Florida Sheriff's Association. Maybe before that, maybe some Jimmy Buffett conversation may come in. We'll see. But really, again, Steve, with Florida Sheriff's Association, that's where our relationship with myself directly and with Prime Health Services and Prime Corrections came together. So from that, I'm just going to kind of sit back and just let you have the floor, let you have the microphone. And again, I appreciate you making the time. And Rich, it's Sheriff Rich. It's worth noting you're dialing in all the way from the other side of the world in Dublin, Ireland, right?
Never a bad day in Dublin,
No.
or in this case, it's the middle of the night. Hey, and
Yeah.
don't forget, Scott, that Steve is a remarkable friend and
Mm.
professional, but he's had a number of life changes here fairly recently, from getting married a little over a year ago to retiring, starting chapter 3, trying to figure out who he is as a private citizen.
Right.
He's an all-around good guy, but this is going to be interesting to hear about Steve and where he's going to be heading and helping us out. As we say, we like to protect the office of sheriff, one podcast at a time. That's a pretty good tagline for us.
I
What do you
love
think?
that. I think good. Well, since this is being
You know what?
recorded, we can definitely continue to use that. So, yeah, yes, with that, Rich, I thought you set that up perfectly. And I guess, Steve, it all kind of factors into, so what do you want to do when you grow up, right?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I'm a native Floridian, born in Daytona, raised around Panama City. And from an early age, as a kid, I used to watch lots of Westerns.
Hmm.
And one of the main characters in those Westerns would be the sheriff or the marshal. And it was just fascinating that this individual would go out and solve other people's problems and provide safety and security, and the community would lean upon them. I remember looking at a Christmas photograph that my mother showed me one time after she realized I was in the law enforcement world. She dug it out from our albums, and it was me and my little brother. I was 10, he was 5. It was Christmas morning, standing in front of a Christmas tree, and we had our regalia on. We had our hats, our vest, our badges, our 6 guns, our boots. I was the sheriff, of course, and he was my deputy. So it's been pretty much a mainstay of my life that I knew that if I got an opportunity to go to work for a sheriff's office or law enforcement agency, I would. And I did. There was a sheriff who came in my 10th grade class in Washington County. His name was Fred Peel. He came in at the invite of the Mrs. Whitehurst, who was the social studies teacher. And he got up and spoke to the class about the office of sheriff and its importance to the community. And he encouraged us to think about a career in law enforcement. And then later, he hired me as a dispatcher jailer under what was known as the CETA program. It was way back in time, Jimmy Carter administration. CETA stood for Comprehensive Education Training Act, and they would provide resources to the local government to hire people under 18-month contracts so they could get some work experience and then also send them to the academy. And that's what Sheriff Peel did for me. And that opened up a wide door. Once I was certified, I was able to go into a full-fledged career. And over the next 30 years, I worked for city, county, and state, and I worked in North, Central, and South Florida. But the career that really kind of set me up for success later was being with the Monroe County Sheriff's Office. And in that career, I hired on as lieutenant and then retired as the lieutenant colonel or the chief deputy.
Okay.
And that allowed me to finish my degree, go to the FBI Academy, make a lot of new contacts and friends. So, in chapter one, I tell people it was all about government, 30 years, and then I retired. But you start at 20 and you retire at 50, you're not ready to go home. So I created a chapter two, which is I went to the Sheriff's Association, got hired as first the deputy and then later the executive director. And I spent 15 years there. And in that role, I got to work. I had the privilege of working with sheriffs every single day. I would talk to 5, 6, 10 sheriffs a day about things that were going on in their county. And in essence, we were a clearinghouse, if you will, of information to help them do their job, right? And so that association's been around for a long time, established in 1893. So it's about 132, 33 years old today. Sheriffs in Florida have been around for about 203 or 4 years. They were first established in 1821 when Florida became a territory. So by the time we're at 2021, that's a 200-year anniversary of someone upholding the law who had the title of sheriff, and then later became a state in 1845. Up to about 1892, almost all sheriffs were appointed by the governor. But in 1893, sheriffs were now going to be elected, and it stayed the course. One of the things I'm most proud about being there is there was one particular county that had abolished its office of sheriff. And it's a big county in Florida, one that you've heard of. It's Miami-Dade. And for 55 years, they did not have a sheriff. They had an appointed public safety director. And the sheriffs in Florida looked at that and thought, this is not what the intent of government is. This should be an elected position. So we worked really, really hard over a period of about 8 years to recreate that office in the Constitution. And today it is the Miami-Dade Sheriff's Office. So 67 counties, 67 elected sheriffs in the Constitution. Their offices cannot be abolished. And they answer to the people. And Sheriff Stanek, he served in that role for many, many years. He knows how important that is to the community to be able to hear them out and immediately take action to address their concerns. Sheriffs are independent. They don't have to go ask the Board of County Commissioners or can I do this? Or they basically just say, listen, I need to do this and I'm going to do it. And they have that independence and they have that stability. Unlike other law enforcement models that I've been exposed to over time, you would see that there might be a state director or chief or even a city chief. They do not have the same stability in their roles. They can easily be removed. I think I read somewhere the other day that the average tenure of a police chief in the United States is about 24 months.
Okay.
And I even talked to the person who was in charge of the Major Chiefs Association, talked to that executive director, or listened to her give a speech one day, maybe a year ago. And what she said is she had a 90% turnover of her chiefs in a 24-month period. And so that's tremendous instability that keeps the chief from being able to do the things he needs to do for his officers as well as the community, whereas the sheriffs just have a very different model. And I think that's why in the United States today, the sheriffs are the preeminent role. And it was an honor to get to spend time with them, working on their issues. And even though the association is 132 years old, it has not hit its full stride yet. I mean, they just recently purchased additional 3 acres of land adjoining their main campus. They're in the process of building the Florida Sheriff Youth Learning Center. So it'll be around for at least another 135 years. And I'm very proud to have spent a portion of my career there working with them. But as all good things, they have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And I knew at 65 I would want to start my own company. So I would still have the energy to go out and do that. And so the role I chose for myself was to be an advocate for the state sheriffs associations as well as the national. And I've worked with some great companies over the years who want to get back to their community, to the state, to the association. And having that experience set me up to say, well, I will, in retirement, I will continue to be an advisor to these state associations and the national, and I will bring forward great companies who want to invest in them so they can go out and do that kind of work. So the last 6 months has been a learning experience moving into the private sector. But it's not boring, and I'm enjoying the ride. The wind's in my hair, and I'm listening to Jimmy Buffett, and I'm occasionally I make it down to Apalachicola where I can do some fishing. But this is what I really enjoy doing: is working with true professionals who are advancing the profession.
Did you say you worked down in Monroe County, Florida?
Yeah, Key West.
Ironically, a couple months ago, I had a chance, maybe you've seen it as well, Steve. I watched a TV series, I think it was Netflix, called Bloodlines. And now that you tell me about your career, it's eerily similar. Is there something you want to tell the audience?
Well, yeah, it's a great show, and I would highly recommend it to anyone who wants to learn more about the Florida Keys. It's set in Key Largo, and in probably 10 years ago. And the gist of the story is you get to follow along the life of the lieutenant who's in charge of the Alamorada substation. And you get to meet the sheriff, and you get to meet the detectives, and you get to meet some of the families that have been there for many years. It's all shot on location. So you truly do walk away after watching the series feeling like you visited the Keys. But one day I was watching the show and I realized this guy was playing me. That was my role. When I was hired at Monroe County, I was lieutenant of the Alamorada substation. Now he's much better looking than me, and he's rich and famous, of course. But he was playing me, and I thought he was doing a pretty good job of trying to deal with a lot of the issues that a station commander would deal with up in Key Largo.
Interesting.
God, I think we lost your audio there for a second.
Either that or I've gone deaf. I'm not sure which one here.
No. Are you back? No, we still lost you.
No, that's all right. He'll come back.
Yeah, he'll figure out. There's a switch there probably. He's pointing to the mic now, so he knows it's a switch problem. So I think he'll be joining us here. But I'll tell you one other story about the Keys that I thought was fascinating. Is when I first went down there in December of '86, I met with the police chief and I met with the sheriff because I was working with the state. And that's a very small island if you've ever visited it. It's only like 2 miles wide and 4 miles long, but it is a microcosm of the entire United States. And it's a multi-ethnic community. The Spanish community there, Hispanic, is very, very present. And it was just a great place to serve out part of my career is down there, because if you can, it's like the old saying, if you can make it in New York, you can make it anywhere. Well, I would put it the other way. If you could make it in the Keys, you can make it anywhere because everything's there and you're getting exposed to it.
Well, it's really ironic. I have a good friend that lives down there in what I used to call Islamadora, quickly corrected to Alamorada. My friend Donna used to work with me at the Hennepin County Sheriff's Office back up in Minnesota, and now she lives down there. She loves the life, always tan, out on her boat with her husband and doing her thing. But Truly, I mean, was there really a family down there named Rayburn? Or is
No,
it just
that
all made up and just
yeah,
a
those are
setting?
fictionalized characters, of course. But there are families down there. The history of that area is fascinating to me too, because um, it's an island chain. It's 120 miles long. It's closer to Cuba than it is to Miami, right? It's
Hmm.
90 miles to Cuba. It's 120 miles to Miami. And a lot of the people who settled it before the bridges connected it were seafaring people. And what I was told was a lot of the Tories that left during the American Revolution went over to the British Isles to kind of ride out the revolution. And then they were going to return when it was over and reclaim their land grants. Of course, the revolution didn't work out for the British. And so they ended up moving down to the Keys. So you have those historical families that are English surnames that were really British subjects that recreated their lifestyle. And even today, the families, the 10 major families of the Keys, of Key West, they're connected to the 10 major families over in Turtle Cay in the West Abacos.
Wow.
It was amazing to kind of learn that aspect of their history too. True
So I'm
Well,
island.
back.
Scott, I think we
Yeah.
ought to get right down to it with
Yeah.
Steve and put him right on the spot. What do you think?
I think
Because
so. And I'm
I've
back.
got some
Yeah.
probing questions. You're
Yeah.
back. Good.
Yeah, and just this is funny as we're talking about being professionals, I thought I was being professional by clicking the mute button on the audio, and then I kind of forgot I clicked on it. So hey, here we are. Here we are. But yes, yes, please, Steve, let's go right into the probing questions section.
Sure.
Well, it's what everybody wants to know. If every sheriff in America, all 3,089 of them as it currently stands, all want to know who you would say is the most interesting sheriff you have come across. There's a lot of
I
them.
like that.
I know, I have some favorites, obviously, myself excluded. But I know you know many of them as well, and you must have one or two. I'll let you have two votes. You get two because it's not fair to pick one or the other. So take two out of the 3,089.
Okay. Yeah, I mean that's a hard decision because I've met so many great sheriffs all across the country, especially through the association with NSA. I would say Danny Glick is somebody that really impressed me as, a real live Western style sheriff, cowboy, handlebar mustaches. It's like he stepped out of central casting, but when you sat down with him, because he was president of the Sheriff's Association, and I think he was from Wyoming or one of those states out there. When you sat down,
Cheyenne, Wyoming.
is that okay?
Yeah.
Uh, so when you sat down and talked to him, you realize he's very progressive. He is advocating for things that would benefit all sheriffs. It's just a different way of approaching the office of sheriff than maybe what you would see in on the East Coast. It's just a different model. A lot of the sheriffs in the East Coast, people like Peter Katusian and B.K. Roberts and what have you, they have a little bit different model of sheriff, but they still have that title and they still have that responsibility. They may just have different duties. I think in Florida, the sheriff that comes to mind is Grady Judd from Polk County. He's kind of larger than life. He's someone who's been in the office almost 50 years at the Polk County Sheriff's Office. And he was someone that was instrumental in my career coming to the association and very supported as chair of the board and then later president, and then later on the committee of past presidents. So I learned a tremendous amount from Grady and how to approach issues. And it was always, the bottom line was how does this advance the association? How does this make the office of sheriff stronger? Those are the two central questions that he would often talk to me about. And if you look at it through that lens, then the answer gets pretty clear as to what you need to do. So just off the top of my head, I would mention those four, but that's kind of unfair because there's another 24 I could mention and give you their story too that I've enjoyed working with.
You were talking about Danny Glick from Cheyenne, Wyoming. Danny's now retired, of course. but he was the iconic American sheriff. If people envisioned an American sheriff, there'd be a picture of Danny Glick sitting on the mantle. And I'll just say, back in 2016, I had the opportunity to host the National Sheriff's Association in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And Danny was the incoming president. We arranged for Danny to ride a horse on his entrance to cut the ribbon, uh, kicking off that year with national sheriffs. And it was like this TV show I used to watch when I was younger called McCloud, where this guy from Texas would ride his horse down the streets of New York, chasing down bad guys. I mean, he was just a force to be dealt with, and we miss his service. But you're right, people like that really make the profession. We also give away these little statues to people who influence or do great things for American law enforcement. I swear that statue is of Danny Glick himself. But
Yeah, he is someone who has certainly had a great career, and he certainly advanced the National Sheriff's Association. And I was at that conference. I remember that night when you had him come out, and I
yeah,
remember that the crowd was like, "Holy cow, what are we watching here?" But it was a really cool thing to be able to kind of westernize that particular event to kind of match the personality of Danny.
yeah.
So
What do you
Steve,
think, Scott? You get to work with Steve all the time as well, right? I mean, you guys
I
guys do a
do.
lot of work together.
Absolutely, yeah. A number of years for sure, and I'm excited that we can continue to have this relationship not only on this show today, but going forward with your work in Chapter 3. So during the time that we first met, there were some programs, or a number of programs that exist in many sheriff's associations, but certainly a few stood out within Florida sheriffs. And if you could take a few minutes and just kind of talk about the different programs, because you talk about being progressive with some sheriffs. Again, it's the matter of, I interact with a lot of different sheriff's associations every day, met a number of different individuals. Not everyone thinks alike, and that's okay. But there's certain commonalities around just maybe more efficiencies, overall cost savings, just being more productive and more efficient. So Steve, could you just walk through a few initiatives that you helped kind of champion over your tenure at FSA, and what was the initial problem you're trying to solve, and where did you see it go, and then what benefit came of it?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I'm going to talk about something that's maybe near and dear to your heart. I know it is one of the challenges that the Florida sheriffs had, and all sheriffs had this challenge, was the increasing cost of medical care for inmates in their facilities. It is one of those areas that you just can't control it. It increased 10% a year or 15% a year over a 10-year period. There was just no end in sight. And so the sheriffs, many sheriffs in Florida and across the nation run the jails.
Mm-hmm.
In Florida, of the 67 counties, the sheriffs run the jail in 60 of the counties, and the other 7, the county commission runs it. And so the sheriff wanted to control those costs. And so one of the things that they had seen was the legislature had given their Department of Correction a special bill that said that people who provide services to the Department of Corrections couldn't charge more than a certain rate tied to a federal index. And there was a sheriff who ran a huge jail in Florida, and he called me up. He said, "I need to work with you. We need to get this bill for the sheriffs." And we did. We worked for 3 years to get that bill, but we were unsuccessful to get them to give us the same provisions they were giving to their own department. The legislature just didn't have an appetite for it. So in that process, we began to think about creating a cooperative or a model that would change that. So we ended up creating the Florida Sheriff Inmate Medical Cost Control Program, and we reached out to partners that understood third-party administration. They understood how to review the bills that they had, eliminate duplicate charges, negotiate discounts with a network. All of it was going to save the community a tremendous amount of money, taxpayers. And that program was created. I was happy to say that the only contractor that has ever been a part of it, the only company that's ever been a part of it, as far as actually doing the work, has been Prime Health Services. When we first approached them and told them what our vision was, they said, yes, we can do that. We have a network. We can stand that up. We can do these things. And it was almost too good to be true, but it turned out to be everything they said they could do, they did. And it was saving sheriffs literally millions and millions of dollars and taxpayers. We would start showcasing sheriffs as a result of it. I think the year before I left, we had one particular sheriff over in Flagler County that had embraced the program, and he had saved $1.5 million. Now, this wasn't a huge jail. I think maybe the jail population was about 400, 500, but it just goes to show you how much money can be saved if you take an innovative approach and you're working with a state-of-the-art company that has the resources. You can build those programs and the sheriffs can benefit. So I just want to say thank you to the leadership at Prime Health Services and the work that great work they've done over the years. I go around the country. I tell other sheriffs associations, you should do this. And they say, well, it sounds too good to be true. I said, yeah, I used to think that too. But I'm telling you, I've seen it, touched it, felt it, kicked the tires. It works. This is going to be a good program for your sheriff's association and for the taxpayers of your state. And that's one of a series of programs that we created that were all designed to try to enhance public safety and help the sheriffs do their jobs.
Absolutely. Let's stay on that inmate cost for another minute or two, if we can, because no secret, I'm with Prime Health Services, and Prime Corrections is the product line. So that was very kind words, Steve. But I don't think it wasn't prompted because it's factual, right? And
Factual, yeah.
and the program's in place. So let me put this topic out here really quick. One of we're working in a number of states now, and branching out, and it was all based on the shoulders and the success in Florida and in North Carolina, and now branching out. I'll be in Wisconsin next week, meeting with that association, and all over the place, talking to Minnesota. So thank you, Sheriff Stanek, for that. One of the bigger questions the team gets is, well, we already have a company that does that. We have in-house medical, and no need to mention names. There's a number of organizations, fine organizations out there, but there's a reality that both can coexist, and that's always been Prime's position, is that all we do is focus on offsite. So what would you say to those individuals, Steve, that, again, it's too good to be true? It's a no-brainer. These are all things that we've heard, but I already work with someone who says they do that. They're my in-house medical. And there's cost pools, and that's a whole other probably episode we can get into. But based on your experience over the number of years, and even Sheriff Stanek, chime in on this as well, how do you see as an appropriate response to, I have someone that does it, they're internal, they're an in-house medical, they control my cost pool, but ultimately the customer is the county, the customer is the sheriff, the customer is the jail administrator. So how do you kind of essentially combat and balance that with, ultimately, it's about savings and keeping those taxpayer dollars in the county?
Well, for me, I'm not from Missouri, but I think they're the show me state, right?
They are. Yeah.
Yeah. So I am akin to them in that regard. I would say that's great. If you created a model that's working, let me see the data to show how much it saved each of your participating sheriffs last year. And if they can come forward with the data to actually show you what the charges were, what the elimination of duplicate charges ended up being, and then what the reduction or the negotiated reduction of the bill, 10, 20, 30, 40% is, and they say, and listen, we don't get paid unless we reduce your bill, then what's unique about this program is you may have somebody, you're probably paying them to do all that. I'm bringing in professionals who do it all across the country, and they're basically saying, if I don't save you money, you don't pay me anything.
Right.
So it is the true win-win. I don't know of anybody who's ever created a model quite like this one. There's some groups out there that claim that they have networks and they claim that they scrub bills and they claim that they save the money. But I would have to look at their data to understand, does this actually compete with the program that was created for sheriffs in Florida? And if so, then as a student of business, I would want to understand how it works.
Mm-hmm.
So there's efficiencies here that can be studied and models can be shared, but I haven't seen it yet, to be honest with you. I know people claim that they have networks, but then when you say, can you provide me the listing of your providers? I never get a listing.
Sure.
So I think it's really just show me what you're doing.
No, absolutely. And I do love that. And what we do within this podcast, and we'll continue to focus on, and you probably can't really see these, but just as an example, we do a number of savings spotlights, and I won't run through all of these, but I'll pick on one highlight, not pick on. There's one in Florida that was recently. This was the diagnosis was a jaw fracture. Yeah, somebody got hit, fractured the jaw.
Right.
Bill charges were $291,000. $291,000. To your point, Steve, about a network, about a process, about a system, controls, saved $261,000 on that single bill. So final payment was $30,589. 89% savings on one medical bill. And I get it. One bill can wreck the entire year. And that's really what it's about. And again, I appreciate you saying it because, and not to make this a complete, infomercial, but the idea is to really highlight around practical experience, show me the results, continue to do that in a demonstrated, consistent fashion, and it's going to be evident, right? It's going to be evident. You talk about Flagler County, a couple years in a row, we highlight the county that has the most savings, and they get a plaque and they stand up. And it's fantastic. It means so much that, from a service standpoint, from the on the corrections side, on the law enforcement side, your impact is seen daily. On the business side, not so much. At least it's not always viewed that way. But this is a sense of pride as an organization that we can have an impact. So, final note on that, it really comes down to, and we invite anyone, there'll be contact information that you can reach out to us. It's Prime Corrections as an email, Prime Corrections, I'll get it correctly, corrections@primehealthservices.com. And again, it'll all be posted when we push that out there. But again, ask us. We're talking to counties every day. And Steve, I love that you said that, because others have said that, Sheriff Rich. Well, show me. Let us show you. And we even have a tagline on our flyers now. Let us show you, because that's what it is. Let the data tell the story. Yeah, I can give you all these facts and figures and percentages, and it doesn't mean anything till it hits home. But looking at that verification speaks volumes.
Yeah, Scott, I mean, we talked about this before, and I told you how I feel about it. I'm aware of Prime Corrections, and this is a no-brainer for sheriffs who are elected officials who receive taxpayer dollars in order to run their facilities. The jails themselves are high risk, high volume. If most sheriffs had their way, they wouldn't want to manage or run the jail. It's just too high risk. It's an expensive proposition. It is about 1/3 of the average sheriff's office budget to begin with, but it goes right back to it. It's all taxpayer dollars. And so it's incumbent upon the sheriff as an elected official in 99.9% of the counties around this country to do everything he or she can to save those taxpayer dollars. So, working with Prime Health, Prime Corrections, and saving 25, 30, 40, 50, 60% off that bottom line bill, no brainer, easy.
Yep.
Right.
If there was a bell here, we'd go ding, ding, ding.
Yeah.
Right.
You know,
And
maybe
he's
we
got
need a
the same
bell.
goals
We
I was
need a
going to
bell.
say, yeah, do you have a bill in here? Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that was one of that really comes to mind as far as programs. Another one that we kind of innovated on, again, it was working with a company that was going to be able to provide a solution for sheriffs, was managed IT. And sheriffs, their environments are highly complicated.
Mhm.
They're dealing with 10, 15, 20 different legacy systems, whether it's the CAD system or dealing with, FCIC, NCIC to get information from the federal government or adjoining agencies. All of this stuff has evolved over time. They're highly dependent on technology to do their job today, and have a company that would come in and take everything into consideration and then provide the sheriff with a kind of a one-stop solution to manage that structure is very important. So there are companies out there that we've partnered with in the past that have done that as well, and that has saved the sheriffs a lot of money because they would give a flat uh, a fee basis, say this is how much we'll do it for the year. Sheriff doesn't have to worry about recruiting staff.
Mhm.
He already has his staff. He knows what he can budget for it for the whole year. It's not going to exceed that amount. And it's trying to let the sheriff get back to the core of what they do. The central focus of government is public safety. The sheriff is the leader for public safety in the county. That's why when you go into some of these counties, you see not only do they do law enforcement, but they do 911 dispatching, they do emergency management, they run the jail. So the sheriff can be what the community wants him or her to be, and they will bring forward these public safety related assignments if they have trust in them. And it may not be their responsibility, but the sheriff can run it, but he's not required to run it. But you often see sheriffs have their arms around everything public safety. And that's where contractors who can help them in the managed IT, and especially today in the cybersecurity world.
Mhm.
I have to tell you that, these systems are under attack 24 hours a day. People trying to hack into them say, well, why would they want to? Well, one, they want to shut the system down and hold it for ransom. Two, they want to take that data that's in the system and then figure out a way to put it on the black web so they can then sell it to someone else, right? So sheriffs are dealing with very sensitive data and with folks who are just beating at the door 24 hours a day trying to find a way to shut down the operations. And so again, it's a major aspect of the job. And in Florida, we were able to bring forward a company called Inspired Technology, which I also advocate for them as I travel around, for sheriffs to look at what they do and see if they have that already. If they say, hey, I've looked at this, I've got all that stuff, I'm good to go. God bless you, Sheriff, and we wish you the best of luck.
Mhm.
And we don't want anything bad to happen to you or your community. But in that process of doing the assessment, if it comes back and says there's some weaknesses we can see on its face, let's fix those and let's get you in a situation where you're not going to be the headline. I had a sheriff call me not long ago in a small county. I won't mention his name or the county, but he said, I'm in serious trouble. I came in this morning. Every computer in the entire building has the blue screen of death on it.
Hmm.
All the printers are printing, and it's basically saying that the system has been hijacked and that they will be asking for a ransom, and we can't stop the printers from printing. I sent that team over and they triaged it, and to our amazement, within a matter of 24 hours, they had been able to restore the system and not had to pay the ransom.
Nice.
But in the meanwhile, they came back and told us what the ransom was. They wanted $1 million in bitcoins. Well, they're untraceable, right?
Wow. Yep.
And the sheriff said, I don't have any money. I can't pay. Now I know government agencies that have paid, which is kind of crazy because think about it. You're trusting criminals who are hijacking your system not to come back later and ask for another $1 million? It's
Right.
crazy, right? So in Florida, the law says you can't pay it if you're a government agency. So as we move forward in time, I think more and more states will say flat out, you can't pay this extortion. It's a crime. You can't do it. And that's going to force these organizations to take a hard look at their systems and come back and strengthen them. And that's really where we need to be. We need the systems to be strengthened so the sheriffs can do their job and do it in an efficient, effective way. And that's another one of those programs, just to throw a second one out there.
Absolutely.
What it shows is associations can be very valuable to their sheriffs because they can give the sheriffs access and influence into the legislative process where bills are passed, or special appropriations bills are funded to provide resources back to sheriff's offices via grants. So an executive director, and there's 45 state sheriff's associations, and there's 3 national, and there's a couple regional. Executive directors working with their sheriffs as the board of directors and the leadership they're powerful in and of their own right. But when they come together as a team, I remember one member of the legislature said, well, you're the third legislative body. We have a House, we have a Senate, and then we have the sheriffs. And if it has anything to do with public safety, we better get them to sign off on it. We won't get it through.
Sure.
And that's true because they worked as a very cohesive, effective team. And I see that all across the nation. And I'm impressed with the work that these state executive directors are doing and the innovation they're bringing forward to provide solutions to their sheriffs. And I'm one of their strongest advocates. Any way I can help them get stronger in the process, so they can continue to provide that services. The last thing I'll mention is Lend a Hand Fund. The sheriffs realize that when an officer is seriously injured or dies in the line of duty, there will be policies that will pay. Of course, workers' comp will pay, the public safety officer benefit at the federal level will pay, but it's usually months before those dollars come in to the wife or the spouse, right? And the children. So the sheriffs in Florida said, we're going to create a Lend a Hand Fund. And when crisis happens to one of our staff members, we're going to have these dollars that we work to build up this bank. And we will reach out to the sheriff and say, see, your deputy is involved in a terrible accident. He's at the hospital. We're praying for him. Sheriff, we think this is a Lend a Hand case that can help. We're going to overnight a check for $2,000 and a challenge coin. If you would present this to the family, tell them it's just money to get them through until some of these other programs get their case processed and bring resources to them. And that, again, was a vision of sheriffs. They were going to have this benevolent fund, and they weren't going to use the money that they raised to put money in politicians' pockets. They were going to take those dollars and they were going to put them in this fund. And when tragedy struck, and unfortunately it does, many, many times throughout the year, they're poised to be able to reach out to that sheriff, provide that external assistance almost immediately within hours. And I think it shows the sheriff's heart that we have to get the job done, but we have to take care of our people. And that's another one of the always kind of, if someone asked me like the top 3, it would be inmate medical cost control, it would be managed IT and cybersecurity, and it would be Lend a Hand Fund to benefit directly the officers and their families.
Every state calls the Lend a Hand Fund a little bit different. In Minnesota, we call it the Minnesota 100 Club. It is just a good public safety message as well, Scott and Steve, and that is, I get a lot of calls at my home and on my cell phone from folks saying that they are this national organization of police, peace officers, sheriffs. I always say I give local, right? I mean, everything is local. So if you have an opportunity and have a generous heart, give locally to a charity back home that helps your law enforcement officers or even the firefighters. Anybody who delves into public safety, they're doing God's work every single day. And it's really important.
No, absolutely. I'm glad you mentioned that.
Yeah.
Sheriff Rich, and that applies to so many things. Buy locally, give locally. Definitely, promote from within and keep it going. Steve, we could probably sit here for hours and go through so many topics because it is such. We've had a number of conversations not recorded. So this one being the first official recording, it definitely, I don't think it'll take much to get you back on this again in the future. But for right now, again, I wanted just to thank you so much. In chapter 3, and I love what you said earlier. It's like, hey, and you said your name, so I don't feel bad saying it because you don't look anywhere near 65. But in that regard, hey, I have energy left. I want to go do it. Some
Yeah.
days I struggle to get up, and I'm just a few years younger. Not dramatically, it kind of shows. But that is inspire. I want to say this as a personal note. That's just inspiring, just with the flair and just the enthusiasm and the positive attitude and always putting it out there. So I appreciate that just from hearing it and recognizing there's really, there's no task too small or challenge too big. It comes down to having a plan, executing the plan, and having a way to measure if it's moving along. And that comes into, everything you talked about with those three areas highlighted, with inmate, cost containment, with IT, and then that helping hand, and as known by other names, Sheriff Rich for sure. Just have purpose, right? Each day, try to make a difference. Try to lead with a good positive attitude. There's so many things going on in the world that it's just exhausting keeping up with just what you may see on your phone or what you may or may not want to watch on the TV. But there's real life happening, and you guys are part of it each and every day. So I really appreciate it, and I'll let you, Sheriff Rich, speak before we close out today for sure. But I personally appreciate it, as the Badge Turns podcast appreciates it. We're going to gain more listeners and viewers because of your generous time today, Steve Casey. Thank you. I appreciate you as a friend. I appreciate you as a person. And yeah, I'll just say that I think it's on Netflix, not a sponsor yet. Watch Bloodlines, because I was watching it before I knew the tie-in, and then when I heard that, I'm like, oh, wait a second, yeah, I'm not saying the actor's better looking than you, Steve. Come on, I wouldn't say that, but in that regard, when I was down there a few months ago, it's like, wait, I kind of recognize that area. Oh, I can see how that works. So yeah, it's a really good show. But yeah, I love how you kind of tied that together, both Steve and Rich. Rich, any closing comments?
Well, Steve's an all-around good guy. He's going to be. He's been here for law enforcement over the years. He's a stalwart in terms of what he's been doing, and he's very well known. We're lucky to have him on the show today. I was kind of curious what happened to old Nico, but I guess Nico's been replaced as the chief deputy. We moved on now, and we've got Steve. But we can bring Deputy Nico back one of these days as well.
He will make a reoccurring appearance. Yeah.
You tell him I said hi.
Absolutely.
Well, gentlemen, it's been a great honor to be on the podcast today, and I think this is going to help a lot of people as you bring more and more guests online and get their experience and understanding, and kind of showcase some of the positive things that are going on in the environment. And so I'll save my really, really good Jimmy Buffett stories to the next podcast. But
yes.
Got some good ones there for you, and I tell you, I am a parrot head, so almost all the time, when I'm driving or if I'm in the office, I've got Jimmy playing in the background. So nice. For those who are aspiring to be parrot heads, there's still room for you on the boat. Just go ahead and sign up.
No, that's terrific. Cool. So there will be a next time for sure. Again, thank you so much for taking the time. Sheriff Stanek, thank you for dialing in from the other side of the world. And as always, everyone, we appreciate you taking the time. As the Badge Turns is, you can watch it on YouTube. You can listen to it anywhere you stream. It's on the Prime Health Services website as well. Coming to a conference near you, I will be doing live live podcast. I will do some recorded sessions with different sheriffs and attendees. So, Wisconsin, watch out because I'll be there next week. But as we kind of traverse through the different states, we want to do what we can. And someone yesterday was, I was down in, well, I guess Cross. I was in Dallas, and you really can't see this. Flyers don't really resonate. And not corrections related because our business as a whole is in workers' comp, auto, group health, personal injury, what have you. So I just was handing out a couple flyers to the APAN Association members, and this one colleague goes, "So what's your angle?" I go, "Showing everyone how you can save money." So ultimately, this is a vehicle for being able to just give you opportunity, give you some more insight. And again, if it's a no-brainer, we want to be on the receiving end. And as Steve said, look at the results and see if you're doing something already and it's working, more power to you. And that's totally true. But if we can help in any way, we will do that. So until next time, I'm Scott, Sheriff Stanek, Steve Casey on this week, and a few more in the future. Guys, as always, take care. Thank you. And as the badge turns, have a great day.
Thanks, guys. Stay safe.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. See you soon.
Hi, I'm Scott with Prime Health Services and Prime Corrections. And when I'm not hosting with Sheriff Stanek, I wanted to take a few moments and talk about our offsite inmate medical cost containment solution. So if you're running a jail and you have to take an inmate offsite for medical treatment of any type, have you ever paid full bill charges for that expense? Hopefully not. But if you have, let Prime help you out. So what we do every day, we receive many bills. I'll give you one example of a bill we just processed this week. This was for a county in Florida. This was for an air ambulance treatment. The total bill, $53,256. Through our scrubbing process and negotiations, we were able to reduce that bill down to $8,447.26. That is, that's a savings of 84%. So if you are looking to save on your offsite inmate medical expense, contact Prime. You can reach us via a link below. You can also send an email directly to corrections@primehealthservices.com. That's corrections@primehealthservices.com. Let Prime show you and let Prime help you save money. Thanks and have a great day.